I always wanted to build my own keyboard, and I finally did. Here is how I did it, step by step. Now, to be fair, I did build a keyboard before, but it was hand wired. And it was great, but it has like a lot of issues. I had to solder things back on a few times. So I wanted to build something more durable with a PCB. So let's start from scratch again. First, you have to design your keyboard, and I used Keyboard Layout Editor to do that. This is a pretty cool tool. It's online, very fast to use. You can create whatever you want, like start from scratch, as I'm doing here, and set up labels or spacing, change the size of the keys. You can also start from a preset, which takes you a long way, and then customize it to your needs. But that was a bit too small for me. This is the plank preset. I wanted something bigger, so I went with this design. It took a lot of iterations to get there, but I wanted the function keys. I wanted my custom layout, which is called Bepo. This is like a French version of the Dvorak layout. And I wanted some kind of split keyboard, but not split. I wanted to separate my hands a little bit while keeping that in one piece because I don't like things moving around on the desktop. I also wanted a few thumb keys, so I have the space bar and the backspace on the thumbs, and then in the middle you have the enter and delete keys. Okay, so now to bring that all to life, we have to design the PCB. And I'm using KiCad, which is a pretty standard tool, and we gotta start with like the key switches. Each key switch, this is the symbol here, has a diode. That's how it works. So there's one end of the key switch that will go to a column, and the other end of the diode that will go into the rows. And so what we need to do is to have many key switch and put them into a matrix and then connect up the rows and the columns. This is not a course, like this is a very simple overview. But once we have the rows and the columns, we need to add a controller. I will be using the Raspberry Pi Pico controller because it has a lot of ports, and I can program it however I want with QMK. This is the software we will be using. So now we've connected every column and row to the controller and the schematic. The next step is to move on with the actual layout of the PCB. Like you have the schematic, and then you put things up in real spacing and positions. And this is hard because first KiCad is a bit annoying with the lining stuff, but second, this is where everything gets real. Like you need to put the keys in the right spacing, the one that you choose, but also put all the diodes and the controller in the right place. So I ended up iterating a lot here, even on the key switch size. You can see I'm adding some padding here. I chose to space out each key a bit more than the standard. And the reason is that I usually mistype stuff on custom keyboards, and I figured let's try with more spacing between each keys and see how it goes. It also leaves me a bit more room to put the diodes in there. Next, we're going to wire everything up. We have the layout, let's connect everything. KiCad is great to guide you, like what wiring is missing, but then the challenge is to make sure like wires don't cross, basically. This is a very fun step. You can try and botch it if you want. You don't have to make it pretty, but if you want to make it pretty, like if you like playing SimCity or whatever, this is really fun. You have two layers. You have the front in red and the back in blue, and so you can alternate between the front and back to go over some lines. This is a bit challenging. And finally, I'm drawing the outline of the PCB. Like the form format of the PCB will be the keyboard. So I spent way too much time on making everything pixel perfect, rounding the corners, because this will be how my keyboard looks. So I wanted to make it look good. If you plan on building a case for your keyboard, you don't have to do that. And this is the final thing. We have our PCB. Now that we have the PCB design, I can order that on JLC PCB, which is like fairly well known for printing PCBs. It takes a few weeks to be delivered, and in the meantime, I ordered keys like switches and the keycaps and the resistors online. And here it is. I love this, like the rounded corners, the label. This is perfect. I ordered it in black because this will be the visible part. The usual is green, you know, but you can go with whatever color you want. I also thought about why not white, but might be hard to keep clean. And so the next step is to solder everything. Let's start with the diodes. This is tedious and long, and like soldering the keycaps after, like not the keycaps, the key switches is a bit more fun, but we have to start with the diodes. And I'm soldering them on the back side, and the rest will go on the front side, like on the other side. If you've never soldered anything before, it can be intimidating. For me, this wasn't the first time, but still, it was a long time ago, so I wasn't used to it. You just have to be patient, know that you will mess up for the first time. So actually doing a practice run on a different board can be useful, and definitely watch a few YouTube videos before. But honestly, if you have the time, if you have the motivation, you can do it. And the next step will be soldering the keycaps. Now there's a big trick here. It's actually fairly simple to solder, but when you just solder them, they are all slanted in different directions because there's some room to wiggle, or I don't know how to say that, but when you solder the switches and then you put the keycaps on, the keyboards look awful. So here I 3D printed some kind of guide. You can see that here, like a small plastic thing that keeps the keycaps aligned, and it really helped with making sure that they all are 100% aligned and look good when I put the keycaps on. I use different switches too, like the brown one are pretty classic. The blue make a click when you press them. So when I press escape or I use the thumb keys, I have a different sound, and it makes for like some kind of music when I type. It's very, very fun. I would recommend doing that. Finally, let's solder the controller. And I chose to have it like elevated because I figured it would be aligned with the keycaps, and just it would look good. I think I would not do that again just because I keep bumping the controller when I use the keyboard, but it doesn't happen so often, so it's not a big deal. Okay, so now we have to program the controller, and I'm using QMK, which is pretty standard. And QMK is C based, so I can program the keyboard with C. So I have some build and flash script in the make file to help me flash the controller. But yeah, I have to program everything, and QMK has a lot of options and everything. Everything is configured in info.json. So I have the keyboard name, and then I can set up the pins for the controller, for the columns and the rows. So I have to use the schematics I designed before. I set up the processor, and then I have to set up the whole layout here. And this is very annoying to do. Like, it takes a long time, but it's, you have to do it. You have to create extra files as well, like the config lets you set up some magic keys, like the escape key, row 0 and column 2. When I press that when plugging in the board, then it lets me flash again the controller, just in case I need to flash it again in the future. This is a nice way. I can enable as well some extra features like auto shift. Auto shift is awesome. So when you type A, so if you enable auto shift and you type A, it will type A lowercase. But if you hold A, it will type A in uppercase. And so you don't have to use the shift key anymore. You can just put uppercase characters by just long pressing some keys, and it's really, really awesome. It takes some use too, but I cannot live without it now. Tap dance is for more advanced macros like typing twice a key. I will talk about that. But this is the main file where you define the layout. And you can see with the spacing, I try to be like show the keyboard so it's a bit easier to maintain. Like, this is the A key, and it's prefixed with BP because this is the Bepo layout. But yeah, you can do whatever you want here. So I have the enter key, delete, alt, control, command, and I have some shortcuts like copy and paste, expose all the windows, spotlight, escape key. with the tap dance feature. So if I press escape once, it presses escape, but if I press it twice, it will expose all of the windows. F1, if I press it twice in a short time, then it will send me to the first desktop on macOS. I can use layers, so if I press the function key, I enter the second layer and I can do like media stuff, brightness up, down, pause, play, volume up and down, and I can do, you know, advanced macros like the tap dance thing, but also complete macros. I'm not going to go into the details here. This is just an overview. But then this is the best part. You can put the keycaps on. And it's so satisfying to see the keyboard finally like come together. I love that part. I did use multiple keycap sets because I didn't have enough because of my wheel layout. So I changed a few things and here's the final result. I am so happy with this. Like typing on this is like incredible. I have very little things to change. I loved the the overall layout, of course, but I don't know, this is mine. Like I made it and it's amazing to type on, and I I want to make a second one, but I have no reason to do that. It's just working perfectly, you know? So this is the kind of project where you don't have the usual the usual reward, like the dopamine hit when you finish a small task. Like you code for a few things, you complete a feature after a few hours, and then you're happy, you have a good day, and like you can sleep well. This is a project that takes months, and you have to wait for stuff to be shipped, and then you have to solder that, and you think it's going to take just a few hours, or like 1 hour to solder everything, but no, it's going to take a few days because you have to rest in between. So when it's finally finished and you can use it, oh my god, it feels so good. I am so happy with that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and maybe I'll make another one for the next version. We'll see.